Okay, we're at 9:02 and we just hit 61 people. So I feel like that's a good critical mass to start. We have a lot to get through, so I just want to get things going. So first of all, welcome everybody. My name is Rafael Contreras Rangel, and I'm an AIS prevention planner alongside with Doug. Doug, if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm Doug Jensen. I am the Northern AIS Prevention Planner for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. And for today's workshop, we're going to be talking about partnerships. So for partnerships, we all have to do our missions. We have to partner with different organizations, institutions, other counties, businesses, nonprofits. So it's really important for us to hear from our colleagues to know what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're partnering. So to start off things, thank you all for participating on this. It's one of our favorite things to do, and we do this once every year. So first of all, we're going to start off with going some of the workshop goals. So we're here to learn from one another's experiences, network with your peers, and then to make just going over some expectations. Everybody has the responsibility to contribute. Please be an active listener and speak honestly. Share information in ways that can help others be successful. And please be respectful and open to the views and ideas of just doing different things. And everyone participates and no one dominates. For the presenters and anybody that wishes to talk, we're just going to go over some of the Teams tools. So here, if you are using the Teams app, the toolbar is located at the top right. And if you are presented, it's going to be on the bottom and it's hidden. So you have to kind of move your mouse sometimes to be able to see it. If you are joining by a browser, it should be at the center bottom of your screen. And please, when people are presenting, or just in general, if you're not speaking, please have your mic muted. I know that sometimes we have colleagues come over and then we're able to hear that. So just make sure to mute those, please. If you have questions, please raise your hands and then you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you can also just ask them in the chat. As right now, for practice, kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but if you can please enter your name, the organization you work for, and share what is your most and least favorite AIS and why. So this is the second workshop in our series. The first one we had was detection, response, and management. And for that one, we actually hit a record high with 89 people. For this one, we're doing partnerships. And then in March 25th, we're going to be having our engagement one. We're also going to have in-person workshops on March 11th at Chanhassen Library. And we have some backup dates for that. And then for the north side, we're going to have it on March 31st at Crow Wing County Land Services Building in Brainerd. And April 2nd is going to be the backup date for that.
Rafa, the public engagement one is on February 25th, next week.
My bad. That was a typo when I was fixing it. Thank you, Tina. Okay. And without further ado, here's our agenda. So we're going to be hearing, we're going to have two different panels at the beginning. We're going to have how do local managers partner with businesses and nonprofits. Then we're going to go ahead and hear the same, but specifically for lake associations on a different panel. Then we're going to go ahead and start and hear a presentation about partnering with tribal nations. Then we're going to take a break. And then we're going to hear about opportunities to connect with the University of Minnesota Extensions and MASERC. So now I do want to welcome our first panel. If you want to please turn on your camera and unmute yourself so you can introduce yourselves.
Hello, it's very bright here, so I'm going to squint. Happy sunny day.
Yeah.
I'm Amanda Weberg. I'm in Grand Marais, Cook County AIS person. Hi.
Hi, Amanda. Bill Granchis, Itasca County AIS program manager, and it's the sun's out here too, Amanda. So we're doing good.
Hi, can everybody see me?
Yes.
No? I had this.
Oh, I can.
I can.
Oh, I was gonna say, okay, perfect. Because last time I know we had a struggle with that. But hi, everybody. My name's Haley Olson, and I am from the Brown Soil and Water Conservation District down in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. Excited to talk to everybody today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here. And to start off with, if you can just briefly mention what kind of partnerships do you have in your counties? You can just focus on like a specific one that you're really proud of, or if you have multiple ones, if you can just touch a little bit on what you do. Anybody can start. This can be more like conversation.
Yeah, so I guess I can go first with some partnerships that we have. Last year when I attended this workshop, I heard about the Minnesota Bait Sellers program through the DNR. So that was a new partnership that we created with 6 different bait shops in our area. We also created a new partnership with the city of Sleepy Eye this summer by putting up an aquatic stick station removal to help remove curly pondweed and with help with boat inspections. And then we've also been partnering with the Minnesota DNR in Watonwan County Soil and Water District through putting some new AIS waterfowl signs targeted at local wildlife management areas to kind of target a new audience. So those are some new partnerships that we started this last season.
Amanda?
Bill? I guess my partnerships are everything except the tourism industry. So I don't know how to, there's the bait, the resorts, the outfitters, the gas stations, all the restaurants, all the gift shops, really.
Crawdaddies.
Yeah, crawdaddies. You can think of something, I'm probably partnering with them. And by partnering, it's like I give them stickers or window clings or something to put just so that there's awareness.
Yeah. Amanda, you're the person I think of a lot of times when I think of partnerships, because I like to copy a lot of what you do, although I'm not as brave as you wearing costumes, but I do that one inflatable one of the big squid. But Itasca County, this was started, our program was originated with the Itasca Water Legacy Partnership, which is now called Itasca Waters. And partnerships have always been a core piece of what we do. Some of you might be familiar with the Practical Water Wisdom series that Itasca Waters, Minnesota Sea Grant, ourselves. I know I'm going to forget somebody. ICOLA, we all do together. That's a monthly lunchtime webinar series, really popular. Our 5-star program of partnering with lake service providers and others on being more AIS savvy. We're always looking for something to do with Cass County, Leech Lake Band of Ojibways. And we've really benefited from Minnesota Lakes and Rivers, the partnership there, and in particular, Stop Starry program. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting this afternoon. It's just phenomenal, the exchange of information that goes on there and the ideas. So, and of course, everybody here, I'm always looking for people to partner with. So we don't give out stickers though, maybe mustaches, but no stickers.
I copied that from you, Bill. I have little detective kits for the kids with a magnifying glass and the mustache.
Awesome. Well, that's the name of the game, is to just to cooperate and know what everybody else is doing and figure out what works best for your own area. So we have the best jobs in the world. So
Ditto.
Well, thank you for that. And I think as we all know, with partnerships, there can be some great opportunities, but there can also be some challenges that come with it. So if you can take some time and talk about some of those great opportunities that you get when you do these partnerships, and also if you can touch on some of the challenges.
Yeah, so like I said, we just participated in the Minnesota Bait Sellers program this last season, working with 6 different businesses in our area, 2 of them specifically bait shops. And I know when we were kind of working with them, provided them with some materials like a poster, some angler cards, kind of telling people what to do and not do with their bait handling. And I know something that we found a challenge is a lot of the employees at those local businesses didn't have much knowledge about AIS. So we kind of had to figure out a way to get past that barrier, or I kind of assist them and let them know, like, okay, well, this is what AIS we have currently in our most popular lakes. This is how people can get rid of them. And then just kind of reading the materials that I had them also give out to the public. So education was a little bit of a challenge, but other than that, they were really willing. They wanted to be a part of the program to try and find more ways that they can help work with the public with outreach because they care about the same issues we do. They just didn't know how they could help out. Um, then also with working with the DNR on the waterfowl AIS signs, it was kind of challenging to find a sign that would also be able to be approved by the DNR board since it was going to be on state property. But once we got past that point, it was really easy. I kind of just got to choose what WMAs I want to put the sign at and then just let the DNR know. And since they already have a lot of signs at their WMAs already, there wasn't much more extra work for the DNR on that side of things. Other than that, we haven't really had too many challenges with our partnerships. Everybody's been really nice to work with so far. So we've been pretty fortunate in that side of things.
Me, I'm going to say challenges are finding, like learning each establishment in the best way that they like to communicate and the best time to communicate. So it's usually April when it's slow before the front of the season, and then figuring out what would benefit them so that they want to be in this partnership. So what kind of tools can I give them to help them make their lives a little bit easier? If there's turnover, sometimes that can be a little challenging, but usually it's great.
Challenges here are pretty much the same. My 5-star program is probably the most challenging because the amount of work it has to take, and it's a very popular program that's also very unpopular, and it's hard. Some people feel that we're trying to tell people how to run their business, and we're not. We're just recommending best practices. And the current challenge you just had at our COLA meeting yesterday was to remind everyone that to make these partnerships work, where we need the individuals each and every time they talk to their lake service provider, they should be saying, what was the last lake you were in? What did you do to decontaminate your equipment? What are you doing? Are you DNR certified? Why aren't you 5-star? And people forget. They think it's all you have to do is once, or that we always do it. So that's a big challenge there. Other than
Bill,
that,
can you
it's
say, Bill, can you say what your 5-star program is?
yes, I can. Thank you, Amanda. Our 5-star program that doesn't work, does it? Oh, never mind. TESCA 5-star program is a partnership that we have with local businesses. We're focusing now on lake service providers where we, in exchange for lake service providers signing a contract where they say they're going to keep up to date on what the infested waters list is with the DNR, again, common sense. They're going to always thoroughly inspect their equipment before they go into a lake, again, the law and common sense. 21-day dry rule, again, common sense. And that they go above and beyond, and that when they can, that they will try to decontaminate, that they'll do the best management practices, go to infested lakes last, and if they can, have separate equipment. And the idea was to form open communication. So where there was none, now there is. We can get calls, but it's hard because you don't get complete compliance. And our public seems to, at times, and I understand why, can think that that's a guarantee, that we are guaranteeing that these businesses always do that. No, it's not. We're saying that they go above and beyond to try and do these things. And that's a big disconnect there. But to me, it's a way of getting information to our lake service providers, but it's forming that communication link so that we're not so much feared. And it's how can we help you with a cap grant? Oh, by the way, could you use a hot water pressure washer to decon your equipment? We have grants for that, that sort of thing. So that's the program. It's called the 5-star. And we have 5-star marine dealers, 5-star landscaping firms. You know, so anyway, so yeah, that's the problem is. Thank you.
I have a question about that is how do you educate them on which landings are infested, which lakes are infested, so which one to go to last?
We give them the links to the DNR infested lakes list. Plus, we have our own list where we list things like curly pondweed and stuff like that. So the main link there is to go to the DNR. I mean, it's number one on the contract is it gives the link to the DNR infested lakes list.
Okay. Well, I have a
And-
map that I give people. I feel like they would not never go to a link and look it up themselves.
You know, that's a great idea. Oh, that's the other thing, a challenge with this is getting a list from the DNR of all the registered lake service providers in your county is challenging, but the vast majority, in my not so humble opinion, the vast majority of lake service providers aren't registered with the DNR, and that's a huge problem. And that's the big idea behind the customers, the lakeshore property owners driving the demand for these people to comply. And in return, we help market those businesses by having the list of our 5-star, and we give them, you can't see it, but well, there it is a little bit, this big decal they can stick on their equipment to help advertise that they are 5-star.
Okay, well, thank you, Bill and Amanda. We do have a question here. Griffin, you have your hand raised if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, sure. If everybody can hear me, all right. I just had a question for Haley. So our office, Sherburne SWCD, by the way, I help with Dan Bulk, our water resource specialist, conducting our AIS program. And it sounds like we're going to try to pilot a similar bait shop, boat retailer outreach program in the coming months here. It sounds great that you at least didn't have a lot of friction getting out those sorts of outreach materials. So we don't know yet if we're going to face similar or no headwinds. I just wonder if you have any way to figure out like what you have for success in that sort of program. When you're dispersing outreach materials, it can be sometimes difficult to tell, did this work? Was this successful? Who took the pamphlets? You know, do you have any outcomes that you can see that would be tangible?
Well, so we necessarily didn't keep track of how many we had. So the materials that they got was they got a poster that people could sign as their way of vouching that they're going to follow the laws. Unfortunately, we didn't have any signatures on that. I think the placement of the posters that the businesses used wasn't the greatest. But then as far as this next season, I'm hoping that we can start having the business owners, if they have the staff and the availability, to kind of try and keep track of how many of those angler cards or stickers that they're giving out to people. I know I had a lot of good feedback from some bait shop owners saying that they were able to engage a lot with the public, but as far as numbers, I don't have specifics on that, but we're hoping to try and focus on that this next year so we can have an exact number of how many people we potentially targeted. That's a really good idea, and that's what we hope to kind of enforce with this next season.
Great, thank you.
And Bill, we have a question for you on the chat from Emily Gable. Do businesses get an incentive for participating in the 5-star program?
Sure. Yeah. The incentive is that we market those businesses back to these lake associations. So we have a list that's on our website, plus anybody that ever asks for it. We have a list of what our 5-star lake service providers are, and it gives their contact information. When we can, we didn't do this last year, but when we can, we'll publish an article in the local newspaper listing our 5-star companies. So the idea is that we give them basically free advertising and we help them with marketing.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, Doug.
Yeah, hello, everybody. So in my previous position, when I was producing different products, both brochures and watch cards, when we were doing those product distributions, I would make a list of all of the bait shops, convenience stores, agency offices on the entire North Shore from Cloquet all the way to Grand Portage. And then I would set aside like 2 days. And I would then distribute out those cards and brochures over those 2 days. And I would track the number that I would distribute out to each one of those businesses and agencies. And so that gave me a good idea for what the demand was, because I would circle back to them to find out if they needed more. And just to keep in mind, and this is basically a question for all of our panelists, how about timing? How important is timing in terms of reaching out to these businesses? And does that help engage them a little bit better if it's closer to the fishing opener? We do know that 70% of all fishing licenses that are purchased are within a month of the fishing opener. Thanks.
Timing is key.
Make my initial like email, phone call contact in April, and then once the snow melts, which is usually after fishing opener up here, I'll go out and deliver materials to them.
I did the same thing, reached out in April, especially with a lot of the bait shops. They're kind of just getting ready for the season. So kind of reaching them before the busy season when they have a little bit more time. That helped a lot, kind of getting ahead of it so that they felt like they were prepared before the official opener for the season. That definitely helped, giving it at least a month of time to kind of get all the materials ready for them and just have a good communication kind of set up before the official season started.
Timing is absolutely everything. One thing that really helps me is, if when possible and feasible and productive, set up monthly meetings with these partners. So in past presentations, I've talked about the Deer Lake Station. This is the best affordable hot water decontamination station, 24 hours a day, available to the public at right next to a public water access site. That happened because of monthly meetings, and it took 2 years worth of monthly meetings and sitting and meeting at a coffee shop. 5-star program, absolutely. Now is the time that we're going to start reaching out to these people. So we're generating the list of everyone we need to contact. It's always frustrating when you get stuff back from the mail where you don't have any delivery because it's a wrong address. But yes, timing is everything. Our practical water wisdom, we're already scheduling next year. We have practice sessions. So it's all about meeting and having set times. The Stop Starry group is the same way. We have every month we meet. That really helps. But I stress, as long as it's productive, having a meeting for the sake of just having a meeting is a waste of everybody's time.
Go ahead, Amanda.
I'm going to think about, there was a presentation at UMISC about partnerships, and the takeaway for me was that it takes time. It's slow in the beginning, but then once you form that relationship, so some of the meetings aren't productive really, but then after years, 2-3 years, those were necessary to then have this really strong partnership now.
True. We're going to fail. I mean, that's part of it, but it's learning from it and just acknowledging the target on your back sometimes, but moving forward and networking. That really helps a lot too. But yes, it takes time.
Thank you, Bill and Amanda and Haley, for those answers. We do have a question in the chat, and I think it's a good one. It's specifically for Bill, but I think it's good to have everybody. And we just have 5 minutes left, so just so you're aware. So the question, and if Bill, if you can start this, did you need county board approval to administer the 5-star? And
No.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, no. We are not doing anything except giving a list of people that are going above and beyond the call of duty. We are not saying do not use this business. We were saying we recommend these people because we acknowledge that they are going above and beyond and following best management practices. So it's a fine line. So no, we never say don't use company Acme, whatever. We never say that. It's always we recommend these. So
Okay,
no.
and your board, and you don't need to get approval from your board. You're just doing it. Oh.
No, well, I have a AIS technical advisory committee. that we do have county people on, and they're aware of everything we do. But for this program, no. No, not at all. It took a while to develop, and actually it was Deer Lake, again with Deer Lake Station, that helped develop this. And it wouldn't be what it is without the help that I received from Deer Lake Association.
Thank you. And Haley, Amanda, can you touch on these questions? Like when you're trying to make a partnership, how much does your supervisors or do you need to get approval from anybody to start making these partnerships?
I guess no, we didn't specifically need permission from our board. They kind of just expect me to go out and form new networking connections with different businesses. As far as we did need board permission, on top of the bait sellers program, we also purchased bait bags through Wildlife Forever. So we did need board approval to purchase those to disperse those out to the other local businesses as well. But other than that, we did not need board approval for forming partnerships.
Right. If I needed approval, I would never make relationships because government.
That's actually written into my job description as one of the things I am is to seek out and form new partnerships. So it's written into my job description.
Okay, we're at 2 minutes left. So for the attendees, do you all have any final questions that you want to hear from the panelists? If not, I do have one, but I just wanted to, any burning questions, then you can just raise your hands to be quick. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, so for this last minute and a half, if there's one thing that you want your colleagues to know or any advice to just create successful partnerships, what will it be?
I can reach out. We're all in this together, and most people just want to help with the work that we're doing. So just get out there, think big, like Doug said in the chat.
Yep.
I agree. And if you ever don't know where to start, the first thing I did when I started my position here a little bit over a year ago is I started calling all of the neighboring districts around me to kind of see what they were doing, who they were partnering with, to just kind of get some ideas of, from my area, what people were focusing their partnerships and time on. So if you ever just don't know where to start, you can always start by contacting other districts in your area to kind of get some ideas, and you just got to get out there and meet people. That's how it all starts.
I concur 100%. Also, never give up, never surrender. But I try to get out of my comfort zone, and now it's my most comfortable zone, and that's going to public events where you normally wouldn't expect to talk to people about fishing, like a home builder show. The other vendors that are there, they get to know you, they see it, and just from seeing you over and over and talking to people you normally don't get to talk to, that has led to different little ideas and partnerships. So getting out of your comfort zone and expecting to fail, but picking up and moving on and succeed.
Okay, we are right on time. Great job, all of you. And yeah, thank you for being here. I personally learned a lot in my position. I deal a lot with partnerships, so this is always useful to just know and talk to colleagues, because what somebody's doing somewhere else, it's really different. Programs are really different, so you can always pick up ideas. So please continue talking to your colleagues. As Amanda said, keep copying other people, keep sharing, and that's how partnerships are made. So thank you so much for your time. And at this time, I'm going to welcome the next panel. Thank you so much. Right. So the next panel, and thank you for staying, Amanda. It's going to be how do local managers partner with lake associations? So we're going to shift gears a little bit. So for the panels for that one, if you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself, please. Okay. So Drew and Justin, are you around?
All good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good stuff.
All right, there we go.
man.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. And so today we're going to be talking about partnering with lake associations. So if you can please just introduce yourselves and let us know how many lake associations you work with in your county, just to start off with.
Sure, I'll jump in here first. Excuse me. Andrew Descartes. I coordinate the AIS program for Carver County. We really love working with our lake associations. It varies year to year on how many we partner with, but every year we have at least 2 to 4, sometimes more lake associations that we partner with in some area, and we typically have about 5 different areas that we partner in. So one of them is watercraft inspections. 2 would be aquatic plant management, mainly invasive aquatic plant management. We have some volunteer programs that folks help out with. And then we have education and outreach that I can talk a little bit more about. And then we often all go to Lake Association kind of monthly meetings or quarterly meetings and do little kind of educational workshops with them. And a lot of them really seem to appreciate that. So yeah, about like 2 to 4 varies year to year.
Thank you.
I can jump in next. Good morning, everyone. Dan Sabolka, Water Resource Specialist with Sherburne Soil and Water Conservation District. And I believe there's 9 lake associations in Sherburne County that are pretty active on a couple of those water bodies. There's both a lake association and a lake improvement district, which is good to have. Lake associations can do things that districts cannot, and vice versa, such as accept donations and things of that nature. So they found an advantage to having both. We have, I believe, 3 lake improved districts in Sherburne County. So yeah, enjoy working with those groups, and kind of as a broad overview, just those are folks that are near and dear to the water resources and familiar with what's happening there. An obvious partner to increase capacity for AIS monitoring and control.
Go ahead, Amanda.
I've already been on. I don't need to. Okay. Lake associations. I think we have 27 here. And then there's like the coalition of all of them. So I've been a part of their committee for the 10 years I've been here, and I'll go to each individual COLA has an annual meeting, usually on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. It's like the holidays. I get to go and talk to them. It's been such a valuable partnership in that they this water is theirs also, and they want to do the right thing. So then giving them the resources that they need to then tell the other owners. And over the last decade, the property owners have shifted to more vacation rentals, and that has been really challenging for the locals that live on the lake, because there's the people that just rent it out every weekend. They're bringing all their trash and they don't care. It's their vacation mode, and having that relationship to work through this and get other part, we're adding in the land services part and getting more regulations in to help them with short-term vacation rental management. And I don't know, I guess I start in at their meetings. Sometimes they're pretty hesitant to let a government official in. Some of them are very anti, just outsiders. This is their little piece of heaven, and I don't want to talk to anybody when I come up here. But when I get in there, finally, it's the first time I talk to them, I'll just bring them the fisheries information and the water quality information and things that everybody loves. And then they can't believe that they wait. They're like, come back every year. This is so great.
Yeah, very similar to what everybody else is saying here. About 15 sort of varying levels of activity on associations. But we've done a variety of things, all those, partner with a lot of them on watercraft inspections too. Really happy to have them add additional dollars to that. Even if it's $1,000, it just helps us keep up and maintain our level of inspections. The other thing has been just special projects. They've got a lot of really people with really interesting backgrounds. They either, own a business, or one guy invented the kiosk that Delta used for self check-in. So got to work with him on some items. One guy had a biology background, so he gave us a bunch of money to start with the eDNA stuff way back before it was even a thing. So they've been great, and same thing, just getting invited to their meetings and letting them know what we can and can't do, and also inviting them to give us feedback on maybe what we should do in the future. Maybe this funding can't support what they want to do with it, but I can find money elsewhere, or maybe it's a watershed district or another entity that can help them do what they need to do. So it just continues to build that relationship of trust, and they've all been really, really good partners.
Right. Thank you all for that great introduction. My first question was going to be, what relationship do you have with your lake associations? But you already touched on that. But I see that Doug has a question, so we can start with Doug.
Yeah, just a question to all the panelists. Amanda, you brought up, I think, an important point, and that is the people that own property in your lake associations. They're going to have different values, different attitudes, different beliefs about aquatic invasive species and the role of government. For all the panelists, are using different tactics to try to reach out to those lakeshore property owners or associations that maybe have some negative attitudes. We know that, for example, the 3 pillars for invasive species include impacts on the environment, impacts on society, but also impact on economics, including property values. Do you use that sort of approach when you're finding that you need to maybe adjust your messages and trying to reach out and try to bring them in and engage them in aquatic invasive species programming? Thanks.
I've never pulled the economic card. I keep it into ecology based, and we've had more algal blooms happening up here. And that's like the one thing that gets people up. Like, my dogs can't drink. I can't swim in the water. That's what I use.
Yeah, I agree with that one. That seems to hit pretty good when you just use very base language with people, depending on the crowd, but just like, this is gross, this is disgusting, all these zebra mussels in this thing, that's gross, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Don't have to go too much into the science of it unless they're interested.
Yeah, for us, I think most of the lake associations are pretty active in AIS. They know what they are. They know some of the things that they can do as as lakeshore owners. So we don't really meet a lot of resistance in that world, but we are a WMO, or a watershed district, essentially, and where we see, and maybe Dan can or Justin, both of you guys, or all you guys can relate, when it comes to things like aquatic plants, we try to promote, we want aquatic plants in the lake, they're good for the lake, but a lot of the lakes push back, well, we don't like them. Even the natives, we don't like them. We don't like them touching our feet. Our kids are afraid of them. And that for us has been kind of the main hurdle. So we did have one lake that was pushing back a lot on that. And what we did is we kind of used Amanda's tactic here to start having, introductory meetings with them, showing them data that they had no idea of, water quality, algal blooms and such, and show them vegetation surveys. And then what came out of that is actually working with that lake association to, and we're in the process of actually making a lake management plan for their entire lake, not just invasive species based, but obviously we can pepper in invasive species actions or strategies in with this plan, with working with them. And it's happening. It's a, continuous project we have with the lake, and everyone seems to be pretty happy so far with the outcome. They just really appreciate knowing that someone's actually working on their lake and publishing a document that they can use as a resource.
Yeah, it just to add to all those really great points, I'm in full agreement with what everybody else said, and it's that act of setting realistic expectations and goals for lake management is a continuing task. When new topics come up or new leadership comes up on a lake association board, and bringing them the resources they can use to understand what management looks like, what the benefits of native plants are. I was at a talk last week, and you were dealing with a 500-acre lake that has a maximum depth of 8 feet. That is a shallow lake. And I explained to the group, you have a shallow lake, you're going to be, and you have high nutrients, you're going to be either in a state of holding a lot of aquatic plants or a lot of algae. And which one do you want? Because you kind of manage the lake appropriately in that sense. That's just the nature of what a shallow lake is. And so, again, understanding what is the type of lake that you live on, what are realistic expectations for that lake. Not every lake is going to be a Lake Vermilion, because all lakes are unique, just as all of us are unique, right?
Okay. Thank you all for that. We do have a question from Griffin, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, Raphael. This one's directed towards Amanda. I remember you talking about vacation rentals in your, I guess, little prelude at the beginning. And us at the Sherburne SWCD, we've been trying to implement some outreach to short-term rentals. That was something that was reinforced in our AIS task force meetings that we had in September and October. And we've been struggling either through lack of ordinances, available databases, other ways to really try to reach out to these folks, because they might not have as much incentive for the care of the lake or knowledge about AIS that are current to that water body. So seeing if you have any strategies there or any insight would be great.
The struggle is real. So how I started, but now we have a short-term vacation rental ordinance, and there's a full-time position that manages that. So that has made it easier, but that just happened this last year. So before then, I have like my little packets or brochures and like field guides that I would give to we have Cascade Vacation Rentals is like the main one in the county. And then I'll just contact individual Airbnb people or VRBOs like individually, or if I can't get that information there, I'll just go on the plat book and find their address and mail them a letter. And usually they'll email me back and say, oh, great. Yeah, I'm going to be up this time and I'll be happy to. So I can just leave materials at the vacation rental.
Great.
Sounds like that ordinance is really an important component to identify all those properties. That's what, like Griffin mentioned, that's what our struggle has been.
This was before the ordinance is when I was like doing that part, but now that there is the ordinance, it's much easier.
Yeah.
So that's a city county thing. Just keep writing to your commissioners.
Yeah, definitely those Airbnbs and just things switching to like that there's going to be some temporary residents that how do you reach them? Because they're just there for like a little time. So we're definitely going to have to get more creative in trying to reach those audiences.
And a lot of them, at least up here, are not registered. Someone just bought it and then every weekend someone in their company takes it. But I don't know what to do.
And who knows where they're coming from too. So, so we do have an earlier question that Bill asked, and I know, Drew, that you answered in the chat, but I just wanted to ask for the rest of the panelists. Do you have a grant or matching grant program that lake associations can tap into? I see you nodding there, Amanda. So how does that work? Yeah.
But it only started after like 5 years of the program when I had enough reserves available. And then it's like, okay, then I can have some people grant. But it's very small of what they're actually asking for. And I don't really need a grant for them to like, hey, can I get one of those big AIS stop signs, like the green, yellow, red one, stop here. So yeah, I can give you $100 so that you can print. And then I do the work where I'll get the sign printed, bring it here. They'll buy the materials. And then I'll organize a CCMI crew to install it because we don't have any, it's all bedrock. So we need some young strapping people to dig in the ground. But so those little things, or if they need equipment to help monitor for invasive species on their lake, like that's pretty simple stuff.
Amanda, question for you are the grants that you give out, are they competitive grants or are they sort of like first come, first serve?
They have not needed to be competitive. So it's kind of a rolling, it's been an ongoing grant. I can send it out. It's like it opens January 1st and it closes September 30th. And just whenever you want to submit something. And then I have my task force will score it. And if you get more than 35 points, you're approved. The attorney has worked with us on the contract language just to make sure that it's a very simple contract, but we have the county attorney stamp for giving out dollars and then seeing like the liability of property.
In Carver, we don't have a formal pass-through grant or grant that, folks could apply for. Kind of how we do it is we, like Amanda said, we kind of use our task force, or we call it stakeholder group. And if there's a lake association or some person who has kind of an ask from the county, and if it's something that, staff would potentially support, we take it to the committee or to the group stakeholders and talk it out. And it just doesn't happen often. Usually the asks that we get are, can we go treat curly-leaf pondweed on a lake? And my answer to that is usually, well, no, because that didn't make the priority list of our AIS funding. That's a little different. We want to put our money towards more of an ecological impact rather than potentially a navigational problem. So I guess a good example would be we had some extra rollover funding for 1 or 2 years, $20,000 or so, and we brought a couple options to the stakeholder group, and we kind of all agreed that it would be good to put that funding towards aquatic plant management, and we just didn't know exactly what yet. So they agreed that staff could bring a couple options back to them, and then we ended up, most of the group agreed that money could be used for a whole lake curly-leaf pondweed kind of long-term project that is being paired with a separate water quality project on that same lake. And that lake sort of boiled up to the top of the priority for multiple reasons. One is because it would be partnering with that other funded Bowser project. And also the county has a park on the lake, and they're potentially going to expand their ownership of the land around the lake. So the group basically came to agreement that, that would be a good use of that sort of extra funding.
I'll just jump in quick on, I included a link in the chat to the Sherburne Soil and Water, Sherburne County AIS grant program. We've had one for a number of years now, and it's evolved over time as the situation in our county has changed, as far as, the prevalence of new AIS, et cetera. But this is a tool that we use to really increase our partnerships with lake associations, districts, and municipalities. And it's a tool that we use to empower those groups to do some of the same things that have been mentioned earlier, such as surveying on a lake to understand distribution of AIS or to prioritize your treatments. We have typically had some funding dedicated towards control projects. In this past year, we made the decision to no longer fund curly leaf pondweed projects because we simply have bigger fish to fry now with more cases of Eurasian water milfoil in the county and other AIS, kind of knocking on the door in counties all around us. But there's two other subcategories in our grant program that I think are really just great tools to empower lake groups. And so there's an education focus. So if your lake group wants to put some kind of a cleaning tool or signage or bring in a speaker or send out postcards, some type of education activity, pitch it to us. And we've got a mechanism to help fund that and make it happen. We'd love to be partners on that as well. And then secondarily, we've had for a number of years a subcategory that provides an incentive payment to lake associations, districts, municipalities to organize and meet an hourly commitment for the AIS volunteer education program. So this is the program that the DNR oversees. They provide training, they do the background checks. And so it's not quite a level 1 inspector, but it is a person at the watercraft entrance that is there to educate, speak to boaters as they come and go, hand out materials, answer questions. And so that just increases our capacity so much further. So if we can support that, we'd love to do so through this incentive payment to the organization that gets that group of volunteers together, meets an hourly commitment. And then lastly, also in that subcategory, if a group wants to send some folks to the MACERC AIS Detectors program, AIS Management 101, we'd love to support that as well. So that's another element of our program.
Yeah, we used to do a grant. We used to do a grant program too. And it was more admin than it was worth doing. So now kind of same as Amanda. It's just, if you want something, then we'll find the money, propose it, and we'll try to make it happen. But most of the time it's, can you put tool stations out? Well, I can do that. You don't need to do a grant for that. I'll just make it happen. It's a lot less paperwork.
Okay, so we just have 1 minute left. So if one of you all just have something to say, so we have a lot of new managers, and sometimes just creating those partnerships can be difficult. As Amanda, you were mentioning, we all have the same goal. We just have to find those things, those similarities. So those things that we want to get together and find that like little connection where we can find that we have the same goal, and that's how things start. So thank you all for sharing your expertise. And Amanda, do you have any last words?
That all of our contacts are on the DNR website for all of the counties. So contact us if you have a question. One of us, someone close by.
Rafa, I could end with one quick last word, I guess, is that for newer managers, I can attest that multiple great ideas that ended up getting implemented as part of our AIS strategy came from lake association partnerships. So they are valuable, and sometimes they're an idea coming from a different perspective kind of makes you feel stupid sometimes, like, why didn't I think of that?
All right. Well,
Go ahead. Oh, I guess I would just, my parting note would be that the relationship is the most important aspect of this work. So be prepared to attend some evening meetings. Be prepared to attend some weekend meetings with lake associations in particular. reach out to somebody and schedule a chat over a cup of coffee or something. Make them aware that you are not only a person as well, but also a person that's genuinely interested in the well-being of our lakes and streams. And so establish those common goals. Always, of course, have honesty, transparency with your partners that you work with. And like Andrew said, they've got some great ideas too. And in fact, you may have ideas that they don't agree with. And so you may need to be flexible in your approach to meet the needs, meet the desires of the people that are on this or that lake. I would love to put a CD3 cleaning station on all the lakes at all the public accesses, but if that's something that they're not agreeable to, or they don't have the capacity to maintain it, then you may need to be flexible in what you end up ultimately going with. What is the best approach for that lake group, for that lake? Just meet them in the middle wherever possible, and again, establish that relationship.
Thank you, Dan. And Justin, any last words?
No, yeah, I agree with all of that, and just as other people said before, think big, think outside of the usual things, and do something else that others might not be doing, and then share that with us all, because there's plenty to steal, and we can utilize what we already have, but we need to make those next steps and do something different too.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time. Again, I learned so much just from hearing you. I hope that your colleagues also learned a lot. So thank you. And now we're going to move on to our next presentation. So this next presentation, it is a presentation. And we're going to be talking about partnering with tribal nations. This is something that we heard from you all that you were really interested in. So I'm just really happy that we were able to get our speakers. So we're going to hear from our tribal relations, tribal liaisons from the Minnesota DNR. And then, so we're going to be hearing about them, and then we'll have a short break right after the presentation. So if you can please take it away, Bradley.
Yeah, there's a Kawasan and there's Nakaz, Nagizi and Dudane, Mrs. Zagaigan and Dunjabal. My name is Bradley Harrington. I'm the Director of Tribal Relations for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I am a member of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and been serving the Minnesota DNR now for 5 years and almost 1 month. Very honored to be here. I am gonna attempt to share my screen. Make sure that. Okay, if I could just get a thumbs up if my screen is shared.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll be going through a little bit about the Minnesota DNR's Tribal Relations Office today. We do have a few slides, but knowing that there may be questions, we'll go through them, we'll present our information, and we definitely save time at the end for questions. So please, any and all questions will be invited and answered to the best of our abilities. So keep that in mind as we go. The state of Minnesota, every square inch of it is a ceded territory, mostly from Dakota and Ojibwe tribes, but there are also another Ho-Chunk element in there as well. But they're predominantly in Wisconsin right now. We do have 11 tribes that share geography with the state of Minnesota, and that's those whose communities and I guess governing centers, their capitals, so to say, are within the boundaries of what is now known as the state of Minnesota. There are 9 other tribes that have rights here from Wisconsin and Ojibwe tribes that have rights here from Wisconsin and Michigan. And as we are more learning about the Dakota, I don't know that number yet on how the state of Minnesota is going to recognize the rights of the Dakota. There's 3 of us at the Tribal Relations Office now. I started as tribal liaison in January of 2020 and expanded into an office of tribal relations last year. And then which provided the ability to hire on 2 more staff. One would be the Dakota Relations Liaison, and the other would be the Ojibwe Relations Liaison. And we structured it that way. When we're talking about bringing on more staff, the default talk was how are we going to administer them by region or by division, how the state structure is set up. But through discussion, we identified that structuring our tribal relations office based off the tribe structure would benefit both the tribes and both the Minnesota DNR. So these are first of their kind in their nation as far as we've been able to tell so far, where we have specific positions within the state government where it reflects the tribes that they're working with. So first time having Dakota or Ojibwe relations or any other similar type of position. We'll give time for Matt and James to introduce themselves, and if Matt can take it away. Did we lose Matt?
Matakipi.
Oh.
My camera's not working, so name's Matt Pendleton. Dakota name is Wakia Washday. The Dakota Relations Liaison for the Minnesota DNR. Nice to meet you all virtually, even though you can't see me. All right, James.
Aning dino maganaduk namugo chamoindan sama mabijay guma naunjiding. Hello everybody, my name is James Clark. I'm the Ojibwe Relations Liaison for the DNR. I'm a proud descendant of the non-removable Mille Lacs band of Ojibwe in central Minnesota.
Oh, miigwech. And Matt is a member of the Lower Sioux Indian community. And continuing on, I wanted to let you all aware, knowing that there's partly DNR staff and partly local partners on the call, I do want to share a new initiative that we're working on here at the DNR for the tribal relations training specific to the Minnesota DNR. This is a branch off of the state's tribal state relations training, which is held monthly minus December throughout the year, and they train hundreds of thousands of staff a year. Very competitive to get into, and usually DNR's partners at the county, city, municipal, nonprofit, so on, are usually excluded from attending tribal state relations training. We are working to have the ability to provide the DNR specific training to our aquatic invasive species partners, or forestry partners, or our water monitoring and permitting partners, and so on, from counties and cities and so on. So that's all in the works. We're hoping to be able to offer that out. Our trainings are going to be regional, so we can get the most relevant information to our regional staff, and we'll also have one for our statewide staff, divisional or central office. We are going to focus in on tribal culture and history, specifically Ojibwe and specifically Dakota, depending on which region that we are hosting the training in. The statewide tribal state relations training focuses in on federal history, federal Indian law policy. We are going to focus in on Minnesota history, starting that from the voyagers, French voyagers that made their way into the region, to King James Proclamation in 1763, to the Northwest Ordinance of the early 1800s, to then the territory establishment of Wisconsin and Iowa, and then the Minnesota territory carve out in the early 1800s, and so on. So we're going to be pretty Minnesota specific on the history of this land, specifically that makes up the state of Minnesota. We're also going to have a section on treaties. Like you've seen in that picture, there's a whole number of treaties for each region. So we are going to go over the treaties broadly. And then for each region, we're going to focus in on the treaties of the region. Keeping in mind that only 2 of the treaties have been litigated and are formally recognized. That would be the 1837 and the 1854 treaties, which makes up those ceded territories. So we'll be getting into hopefully a pretty deep dive in that. We're going to have local presenters, whether it be tribal leadership, tribal staff, tribal or American Indian students. We are targeting a college campus to host these trainings at, which would provide us the ability to hear from students who are actively researching or doing projects, who would be our future colleagues or our future leadership in some instances. And then, of course, we'll get into what it means to have tribal relations here at the DNR, how our office is structured, additional resources that are here. We do have 2 teams. We do have other resources such as tribal contact form that DNR staff are encouraged to fill out as we go on. So our main goal through the training is to deliver the information, history, tribal history and culture, state history, treaties, and so on, but then help them understand it, how it applies to their work. So that'll be the number 1 question we are trying to answer. We do have 2 teams here at the DNR. One of them is the Tribal Relations Working Team. There's 2 from each division that are assigned by divisional leadership to serve on the team. And we also have all 4 of the regional directors on the team. We meet monthly. We went through a transition as Matt and James were hired to swing administration and facilitation of this team to Matt and James. So Matt and James are the co-facilitators of the team. Some of the things that we do on this team, we look at large scale projects that come through. We assist with the metrics for achieving strategic priorities, which tribal relations is one for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Where they also drafted and redrafted my job description, drafted Ojibwe and Dakota relations liaison job descriptions, and they also in charge of overseeing and drafting and redrafting each division's travel coordination plan. So they do quite a bit, in the couple hours that we get to meet every month. We also have a TEK team. This one's fairly new. TEK is an evolving anomaly, and depending on anybody's 3 terms that they use for TEK, whether traditional ecological knowledge, or tribal environmental knowledge, or a combination mix up of of either of them. We also run into different terms such as tribal experiential knowledge. Sometimes we'll hear it as tribal stories, or and so on. There's a whole list of terms that can be describing this, and the definition really isn't quite clear on what exactly it is that we're talking about. By default, what we are seeing is that TEK generally would be like a story where they talk about how for Ojibwe there was a spirit that poured water into the syrup of the maple trees, adding water to it so we don't get lazy. So those types of stories are kind of like the default TEK. But then there's also present day knowledge that is gained, such as a tribal fisheries biologist in 2024 that did a fish survey out on so and so lake. Is that also tribal environmental knowledge? So there's lots of different ways to describe it and lots of different ways to define it. So that's one of the key things that the TEK team is doing here at the DNR. Where goal is to have a term or terms that reflect the tribe's perspectives on that particular knowledge or data that we're talking about, and a definition or definitions that are specific. Remember, we're talking about two different tribes here that may have two different perspectives and criteria that would fit whatever it is that we're talking about. So very large task for them, right? Not an easy task. We do have representatives from every division. We're starting to look at specific types of positions that are part of the team to bring it out, and we are scheduling interagency discussion as well, where we bring in our partners from MnDOT, Pollution Control, Department of Health, and so on, to hear our work and then also offer suggestions and possible partnerships. So we want to get into working with tribes. So we went through some of our broad structure. We went some of the initiatives that we have, the newly forming and evolving Tribal Relations Office here at the Minnesota DNR. One of our core functions is to assist in maintaining and enhancing the interactions with tribes. My role is mainly at the official level with the Commissioner's Office to Tribal Leadership. With the addition of Matt and James, we're able to do that on a much broader scale with the staff of the Minnesota DNR and also the staff of the tribes in which we interact with. And with the DNR's wide variety of authority projects, forestry, lands and minerals, parks and trails, EWR, and so on, fish and wildlife. There's plenty of opportunity to interact, and we're here to make sure that we're able to identify opportunities, give guidance for interaction, and how to establish and maintain communications, which we would then hope to see partnerships, collaborative partnerships develop out of them. So first up, we will work on, we'll send it over to Matt to discuss what it can look like working with Dakota tribes. So, Joaquin, Washday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, like Brad was saying, started in September. If your department is has relationships with the Dakota tribes are trying to connect to them and need some help, my email's right there. You know, hit me up on Teams. You know, Parks and Trails been working with me to make contacts with the 4 Dakota tribes, not just in Region 3 and 4, but up at in Region 2 and Region 1, where you know, Minnesota is Dakota homeland before contact. You know, if there's anything I can do to assist you in your work to help build those relationships, strengthen those relationships with the Dakota tribes, I'm here for you to help you and assist you in whatever means I can. Setting up meetings, going, you know, in person, virtual, just to help you work with the tribes better, to bring the tribes in early on as possible on projects, to help build those relationships and strengthen that connection with the tribes, and getting the input from the Dakota community, and being able to, you know, work with you in whatever ways I can help, whatever questions you have on working with the tribes. Bradley always says there's not a dumb question. So if I don't have an answer, it gives me opportunity to learn and find out the answer for you. So if there's anything that you guys ever wanted to ask, we're here to help, you know. So all about helping build those bridges to the tribes in a good way, and that's what I'm trying to build here as the Dakota Relations Liaison. So I touch on everything, Brad.
I don't know. It'll probably benefit this group if you talk about what you have experienced so far. If you have a few examples.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like each tribe is different too. So some want you to go through their tribal administrator. Some want to go to whatever you know, department you're working with, but they want to be involved. They want to have their voice and brought to the table. And a lot of it is just making those connections. You know, there's some project that was going on in Upper Sioux that wasn't able to work on a weather station for about 5 years or 6 years, and it was just a simple going over and meeting the new environmental director for the tribe, and then connecting the workers in the DNR with them to set up a meeting, and then set up a time to upgrade that weather station there. And then helping setting up coordinations, or starting to try to do coordinations like Region 1 does with the Anishinaabe tribes of the North, to bring the tribes together quarterly to get their concerns and their get them up to date on all the projects that are going on, and where the tribes can assist the DNR, and where, you know, the DNR can assist the tribes on different programs and projects that are moving forward in this beautiful state.
Wopata, Coda, and then we'll move on over and hear what it's like working with the Ojibwe.
Morning again, everybody. Thank you all for coming out today. I also, like Matt, just started late late September, so I'm still getting used to my new role, but I've experienced some really good partnerships and some really good potential large project opportunities. As you can see, I work in almost all of the regions. That is because for Minnesota DNR, the Mille Lacs Band, which Brad and I are from, is located within Region 3, the very kind of northwest tip. So, as also stated, there are 7 Ojibwe bands located in Minnesota, and that all have treaties, and thus have we as we in the DNR work with them on an annual, quarterly, sometimes even bi-monthly basis. That's really been the encouraging thing, is on a quarterly basis, in Region 1, there will be meetings with the White Earth Nation, the Leech Lake Band, and on a yearly basis, we'll coordinate with the Fond du Lac Band and Boyd's Fort Band. And so there's really good, like Matt was saying, opportunities for the bands to, at a more localized level, be able to voice their concerns, their, what they've been noticing, what they hear from their own people, right? We all work for the people of the land. And so these coordination meetings have been huge to be a part of, to meet the people, to understand the issues, and to know how we can work together to move forward. So on top of that, we also do consultations per state statute 1065. We are to enter into consultations with tribal nations. In our Matt and I's first 6 months, we have accomplished 5 or 6 alone, I want to say. It's been a good number between Dakota communities and Ojibwe bands. We've already been accomplished in getting our, as Matt said, our foot in the door and our relationship being built, right? Even though we're from these communities, we still want to make sure that we build the relationships from the ground up and show the elected leaders, the DNR partners at the different bands and communities that we're very serious and that we're here to help in getting what needs to be done. And so that's I'm really looking forward to just the sheer scope of projects that go on within the regions to be a part of, to make sure that each tribal nation that should be there is there. We have some great state park projects, some of the mining projects, and just a whole host of things going on within the regions that I'm coming up to speed on and being a part of, and ensuring that our tribal partners are also in the room. So, gonna go you.
Oh yeah, Miigwech. Okay, so we are able to now reach and further assist in specific project development, establishing interactions on a much more broader scale now with the addition of Matt and James. And we're really grateful for that. And we still don't know what our limit is, like we're how far the reach can go. We're still kind of like in all their searching for our best ability to be able to assist the DNR, but then also assist the tribes. For those of you that may have worked with a tribe, you may have seen that there may have been some short staff, or some staff wear multiple hats, so to say. And so we want to be able to, one, bring efficiency to the DNR in working with tribes, but we also want to be able to build up the tribe's ability to interact with the DNR. That's part of the goal here as we bridge all these the sovereign nations. So that makes 12 sovereign nations that oversee this area within the boundaries of the state of Minnesota, that we gotta make sure are coming together and interacting and assisting where there's an overlap of jurisdiction. You have heard the mention of regional coordination meetings. So here's a comparison of the ceded territories and the tribes with a map of the state DNR's regions. And there's really no line that lines up too well, except for maybe that one just on that straight one on the north side of Mille Lacs Lake. That's almost the closest one, and even then, you lose out on some territory. But they talk about those regional coordination meetings, where in Region 1, you see that Region 1 is Red Lake, White Earth, and Leech Lake. So they would hold regular meetings individually with each tribe. And something that they recently started last year was a collective where the DNR and all three tribes met at the same time. So they're planning to do that annually to align the work that's being done in the region, but then also the work individually being done with each tribe. Region 2 started picking up coordination meetings, and we are now, with Matt's assistance, able to plan out and discuss with the Dakota tribe how they would, Dakota tribes, on how they would like to interact on a more regular basis with the Minnesota DNR. So there's a few caveats and a few nuances in just about everything that we talked about so far. And mainly with the Dakota, we see that there are treaties here, 1851, 63, 1858. There's some history there. There's a lot to unpack yet. So where Matt, James, and I find ourselves regularly is kind of like in an educational forum where we're still bringing up history with the Ojibwe. We're starting to really get a lot of the Dakota history out there, and with the Dakota, that's not by accident. We in Minnesota do not know a lot about the Dakota due to the erasure of the Dakota from this area. There was specific, deliberate, genocidal tactics used against the Dakota to push them out of the state of Minnesota, and then further erasing them from history, or that was even being taught in school as little as 10 years ago, and also erasing them from any statutory obligation by the United States and the state of Minnesota until recently now as well. So why we don't know much about the Dakota was due to very deliberate actions that made it clear that we aren't supposed to know. But because of Matt and awareness being raised about Dakota history, missing and murdered Indigenous people, treaties, what does tribal relations mean, this new awareness in this time that we're in, we're finding that being absent of knowledge is actually prevented solid forward movement. And so when we are learning more about the Dakota, we're going to learn more on, well, what they have been through as a people, what they had went through in order to be exiled, and then, coming back to their homelands. Like Matt said, every square inch of Minnesota is Dakota ancestral homeland. The Ojibwe, we're newcomers here. We're just a little bit newcomers, more than Europeans are to this area. And, recognizing that, coming to terms with that, something that we all need to accomplish in order for us to make those, broader decisions on working together, and why it's important to include these other sovereign nations in this work here that have been established. And we did save plenty of time for questions. We know that what I've seen as I've been going around the DNR and state of Minnesota is that there's always a lot of questions. So please, if there's anything that you've ever wanted to know, fortunately, Matt, James, and I have been asked a lot of questions. We may have the answer for you, so we want to make sure that you're leaving this this meeting here today with those questions answered. And there is no dumb question. Well, there is a dumb question. It's the question that does not get asked because no one gets the benefit from it. All right, so we will turn it on over and we'll be taking questions now. We did like a flyby presentation with this, knowing that there's very specific questions or areas or thoughts even. We want to hear from you all on what your thoughts are. Maybe you have worked with a tribe, maybe you had some apprehension. Maybe you were completely unaware. So we would like to hear that also. I'll stop sharing.
I guess I can share a little bit about working with Grand Portage because I'm up in Cook County, and it's like a partnership. It's slow work. It's just making that relationship at first, and there hasn't been a lot of actual action or implementation being done, but just being in the conversation together has been really nice. So now we've helped with a car wash, boat wash up there, and basically just copying. Like they will come to me and see what we're doing and then implement their own version of that on the reservation.
I also have a question. Well, more of a comment. It's just as Bradley mentioned, I think we're really fortunate here with the DNR, just because we actually do have a tribal relations training, and I found it really useful. And I think sometimes before the training, I kind of felt like trying, and this is just because of history. Bradley, you mentioned history a lot. Why it's important to know the history. And sometimes I felt kind of like when I was thinking of talking to tribes, Bradley, I came up to you during the training and I was asking you like, how can I start making partnerships? Because sometimes I feel like I'm walking on eggshells because you want to be respectful and you want to say the right things and you don't want to say the wrong things. So that's the reason why we're having them here. Like any questions, as he said, it's not a dumb question. Like for me, it was like, hey, how do I talk about invasive species? I know that invasive species there can be seen different by the tribe. So like, how do I open that conversation? Like, do I call them invasive species? Do I not call them invasive species? So yeah, I just wanted to mention that it can be any question and something that is important. I know that I'm originally from Mexico, and these tribal nations, they are sovereign. They're their own nations. So just thinking me being from Mexico, it can be like thinking that like, oh, I'm gonna do some management over in Mexico now. Like obviously, when you think of Mexico, you will have to like go through like so many different things. You have to talk to the right people. It's not something that you can just go over and just do it. So that's why it's important to know the history. And Bradley, if you want to share a little bit of that, why is it so important to know the history of all of these different nations? And you mentioned before that each there's a lot of Ojibwe tribes, there's a lot of Dakota tribes, but they're all their own individual nations and they're different. So the way that you're dealing with them will have to change So can you touch a little bit on that?
Yeah. So knowing and understanding the history, we're going to be understanding also where a group of people are coming from, but then also an individual of that group where they're coming from as well. So if let's say we are going to start a new interaction with another group where we don't know what they've been through, and we automatically assume that anybody and everybody wants to work with the Minnesota DNR. And we start off the interactions with those intentions. I know Ojibwe people, and I'll leave it for Matt to speak on behalf of the Dakota people. But for Ojibwe people, we have lived in a crisis state now for nearly 200 years as this area was being populated by Europeans. So living in a crisis state with a neighbor who can be, as a people, one of the friendliest partners, neighbors that you can ask for, or a bloodthirsty neighbor that would kill you and your whole family if you just for being in the area. And Ojibwe people experience both levels, both opposite ends of that spectrum for 200 years. So if we did not know that, and we're trying to start an interaction with them and full of good intention, but then you are met with what may be seen as resistance, hesitancy, standoffishness. You know, you might start questioning, and these Ojibwe people, they're kind of don't want to be a part of anything. They don't trust. I'm here trying to give them this opportunity, and they seem to not want to interact. If you don't know the history, then you start coming up with assumptions. Maybe you would assume that Ojibwe people are rude. Maybe you assume that Ojibwe people don't like other people other than Ojibwe people. So you start coming up with a ton of assumptions because that history was not taught there. You weren't taught that. And Ojibwe, like for Mille Lacs Band, we were like violently attempted to be pushed out of this area. And I'm hoping you're asking by who. And I'm going to tell you, it'll be by the founders of this state of Minnesota, Sibley, Ramsey, all them, all the way down to the territorial sheriff, and then eventually the county sheriff. In the late early 1900s, were actually sent up to the reservation here and burnt down the village. Physically burnt with fire, not metaphorically. Tossed fire on the living quarters, wigwams of the village and told them to get out of here. So that was early 1900s, 1910-ish about. And then 100 years later, kind of a shift in dynamics with the state, wanting to work with tribes, plus legally have to now by the Supreme Court. And we're still wondering why is there this metaphorical now wall in between state of Minnesota and tribes. It's because some people don't know that history, which may cause apprehension, which may cause a sense of mistrust to the state, because 100 years is really not that long ago. Some of us may have a grandparent or a relative who is almost 100 years old. So that's a lifespan. So it's really not too long ago, and that history sticks with us. For Ojibwe people, we still rely on information and stories and teachings that are thousands of years old. So I can't imagine what it's like to have recent information, which may be a century old, still impact us so much today. So I'm hoping I answer that question, right? Like why it's important to understand, or just you don't have to understand it, maybe just know the history, and have your awareness raised on why it might be tough to establish a trustful, meaningful working relationship with Ojibwe people or even Dakota people. Dakota people had it worse. So we got to overcome, and it's through knowledge. It's through understanding, uh, empathy with the people that we are trying to work with.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bradley, for bringing that perspective, as Amanda mentioned on the chat. Really appreciate it. We do have a question on the chat, which I don't think I'm good enough to answer, but Tina, if you can maybe touch on it. And I know that there's also some AIS county managers that deal with borders. So the question is, for those counties that are bordering reservations, we all have county inspectors. So for the county inspectors, how should they deal with inspecting tribal members? And again, I feel like we can all kind of like pull together, maybe the people from the counties that border with tribal nations. Do you all have an answer to that question, or maybe Tina? And if not, we can get back to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would just say I'm not sure if any of our watercraft inspection supervisors from the regions are on. I know that they deal with that on a more direct basis. So if there's folks on the call that might be able to answer that question here. Otherwise, yes, we can definitely get back to people. Or if Bradley, if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so as you've seen that there's not a treaty that's assigned to a certain area of Minnesota. There's also not a county. There's also county boundaries within those ceded territories and the state boundaries. So it's inevitable that there's that overlap there, right? What I have seen is when the county has good working relationships with the tribes, who a portion of the county a reservation may make up a portion of it, and I'll continuously use my tribe as an example, because a portion of the Mille Lacs Reservation is included within the Mille Lacs County boundaries, and sometimes the name Mille Lacs is almost our only similarity. There plenty of differences there, but in Mille Lacs's case, there is a partnership where watercraft inspecting, there's washing stations that have been set up, and also with other tribes from Wisconsin or so that are coming to Mille Lacs Lake for fishing. They also set up watercraft inspection and watercraft washing stations for other tribes, just specifically for AIS. So when those partnerships are strong and working together for the common goal, regardless of any personal belief on whether or not the tribes shouldn't have to or don't have any authority or from the tribal's perspective that the state shouldn't have or don't have any authority. Our common goal is to, help with aquatic invasive species efforts, right? So if we can boil it down to that rather than who gets to say what, because there may always be a disagreement there, we can at least get to a common goal and execute the work that needs to get done for that.
Yeah. So thank you, Bradley. Yeah, I think it comes down again to like we all have the same goals. We all want to protect our environment. So if those goals match up, that's what we can focus on. And I see, Janine, that maybe you can add a little bit more to that.
Yeah. So if it's on a reservation, like if you're inspecting on reservation property or any of that kind of stuff, we technically do not have the legal authority to inspect tribal members on the reservation or on the tribal lands themselves. But you should try to, as Bradley said, like try to work with them, right? Try to treat them with respect and try to, educate them why you're also there. They have the right to deny the launch, or to not deny the launch, I'm sorry, to deny the inspection when on tribal lands. If they're off tribal lands, it's, it's kind of that fine line. Like, yes, we technically have the legal authority to be able to inspect watercraft, to inspect their watercraft. Sometimes sometimes they will call it sovereign property and all this other stuff. So I think there is a fine line that you have to walk with tribal members. I try to treat them, I always try to tell inspectors to try to treat everybody with respect, right? We're all trying to do the same goal, right? So I think yes, technically we have the authority to inspect them, but you also have to kind of walk a fine line sometimes with some of those inspections. And I think Tina and I are going to try to have more conversations with Bradley and Matt and to kind of discuss a lot of these different, aspects to the legal authorities that we have for inspections, and how can we try to bridge that gap even more. So stay tuned for more, hopefully, information as we try to bridge some of these gaps more as well.
Yeah, and I want to remind that this is, as Bradley mentioned, this is the first attempt in the nation. Minnesota is the first one that has this kind of office, so there's a lot of new things, a lot of discovery, a lot of exploring how we can make things better.
And I would like to add that generally within reservation boundaries, state law and regulations generally don't apply, but there are some, that's also a gray area, right? Because if I'm speeding on a highway through a reservation, whether it be my reservation or any other, I'm still subject to, get pulled over and be fined for speeding. When we start getting into more of natural resource regulations, with tribes having adopted conservation codes within their reservation boundaries, and then also ceded territory, also called off-reservation conservation codes, so that I got to follow different rules set by my tribe within the reservation boundaries if I were to fish. If I wanted to fish a lake outside my reservation's boundaries, I have to follow a different set of conservation codes that my tribe has. So we have on-res and off-reservation conservation codes. And then when, where state law starts coming in, as sometimes what we find is that it's outside the DNR's authority to even reel in that authority. And we use the example of public water permitting. So state law went and declared that all navigable waters within the state of Minnesota are public waters. So that means they're there for everybody. Unfortunately, that list was made many years ago, long before anybody even talked to tribes. And there are some waters that are exclusively within the boundary or reservation, and even in some instances within trust land, which we start talking about land and it gets complicated very quick. Trust land, fee land, reservation land, ceded land, state land, public land, so on. It gets complicated quick. Well, that's another thing that we're trying to navigate. So Red Lake Nation has inspections on res. They would like more inspections off res, and they work with the Minnesota DNR and to increase those inspections for public north upper Red Lake public water accesses. So that's just another example. Whereas Red Lake, even though there's a line that is drawn where state anglers are prohibited from crossing, Red Lake holds that since those waters all flow and mix together, they would like additional protections on the public water, Minnesota public access side of it. So, yeah, something as simple as washing down your boat at a certain public landing can land us in a gray area where we're really uncertain on how to proceed. And I think that's why it's important to keep that goal in mind, right? We want to make sure that the goal is clean boats, clean waters, knowing that there's going to be differences of opinion on who says the boat is clean and who gets to say that you need to clean your boat, right? So there's differences of opinions there.
Thank you for that, Bradley. And we have a few minutes left, and we did start a little bit late, and we do have a little bit of a buffer. So
Okay.
I think it's important to just ask this question because they don't have, our county partners don't have the opportunity. Thank you for being here to have somebody like you. So the question is, how can counties and local governments, which do not have tribal nations located within their borders, still work to develop relationships with indigenous partners?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it also depends on proximity, right? Some counties are counties away from any tribal community, but more often than not, there is a tribal member living in your community. So that might be a good way to start. I think if we're talking about watercraft inspection, and in this case, aquatic invasive species, it might be a little bit tougher because, the tribes also have a limited personnel to where they are unable to cover every lake in the state, which is why it's important to have that partnership with the Minnesota DNR who does. Even the Minnesota DNR can't cover every lake in the state. I don't think that there's a lot of lakes here. But knowing that we can come up with the goal, right? And then we can also discuss how to achieve that goal working together. So for the question, for the counties that are not adjacent to or within a reservation boundary, I think more than relying on aquatic invasive species, maybe there's for a county, to want to be able to acknowledge the land that they get to administer, which treaty was signed in order for the United States to gain access, which then gave the ability for the state of Minnesota to get formed for that particular land. It can just raise the awareness of county staff, county leadership, which would then hopefully raise awareness for county membership, people who use the resources of the county. And then also, quite a few county leadership, county staff sometimes may transfer over to either state work or other municipality work, and just having that general understanding. I know if I were to go to France to work, myself personally, I'd want to learn more about what France is, right? I could watch all the movies I want, but there's still some more understanding. I'd probably want to use their language a little bit more, not just out of necessity, but just honor and respect, right? I want to honor and respect the French people whose land I'm now calling home. I'd further want to understand that particular area has a story, right? And in the case of the Ojibwe and the Dakota, place and area stories, there's some Ojibwe place stories that I don't know due to tactics to remove and relocate the Ojibwe people from central Minnesota. So, lots of understanding. May not have any like direct impact on your work. It will have more like a passive impact on who we are as a people, who we are as individuals, and raising our common understanding of the large makeup of different people that Minnesota is. I'm not running for any state or public office or anything that kind of sounds like a campaign speech, but just how I see it.
I don't know, Bradley, if you run for office, I'll vote for you. Well, we're on time, and I also want to respect your time. We had you for a whole hour, both Matt, Bradley, and James. So thank you for your time. And yeah, I mean, you all have a difficult job to do. First in the nation program, so you all are figuring how to do things. You're making that bridge, and we really appreciate that. And we understand that there's a lot of trial and error. So thank you for doing what you do, and thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Okay, so now we're gonna go on break until 11:10, and once we come back from break, we're gonna be hearing from about opportunities to connect with the University of Minnesota Extension and MASERC. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you in 10 minutes at 11:10.
Rafa, are you back? This is Maddie Hayden.
Yeah, I am here, and I just saw your email.
Yeah, I
You hear?
think I might try to log out and log back into Chrome because when I hit share, it's showing as like a preference. My preferences due to the screen recording.
Okay.
I just have
let
to
me-
run to be an admin really quick. So I'm gonna try it and I'll jump off and jump back on hopefully within a minute.
Okay.
Rafa, if you don't mind, it's Megan. Can I just try to share my screen quick? I've had
Yes.
some Teams issues today, so I just want to make sure that this won't be one of them.
Okay.
Is it sharing?
Yeah, but it's
Oh.
not in presentation mode right now, just so you know.
Okay, that's fine.
Can you
Just as long as
try? Actually, can you try putting it on presentation mode? Sometimes we see like the presenter view, and we have
it's
to
in
like.
presentation mode now.
No, I still see the slides.
Okay, hold on. Now?
Yep. No, we're good.
Okay. Well, as a worst case, Maddie can send me her slides, then I guess, and I can share for her.
Yeah, I mean this things like this always happens, and it'll be fine.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much for letting us know, though.
Yes, I'm glad this is working.
Naturally, when I logged in, it told me I cannot share or show my video.
I had the video issue when I first joined, Maddie, and I don't know what changed, but at one point magically it was just there. Do you want to email me or send me like a share link to your slides? And I can share them for you and you can just tell me when to advance.
It's gonna reformat everything. I'm gonna try to bump into the app. I'll do that, but I'm gonna instead of doing the browser, I'll try to do the app.
Okay,
Rafa, you
we
just
can
have to
always
log in.
reverse order too, and I can go first.
Oh, this is like my nightmare. This is what I was worried about, not the presentation. Okay. Let me back in. I'll try on logging in on the app.
Rafa, she wasn't a presenter just now. She was only an attendee. So when she comes on again, make sure I'll pop her in as a presenter. So when she first, oh, you're muted, Rafa. But when she first joined back in, she was popped down to the other one. So we'll see where she pops in next.
Yeah. So if you can keep an eye on that, Tina, and make her present, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, she's back on. I got to make you a presenter, Maddie.
Maybe that's half of my issue.
Yep. I think that's what it was just recently. So you're a presenter now. So.
Okay. Oops. It just jumped Windows. Let me share. Microsoft Classic Teams would like to. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's asking me to quit and reopen. My day this is beyond frustrating for me right now.
Don't
Can I
worry
join
about
for a
it,
full
Maddie.
time?
It happens to everyone. We have some time. It's okay.
I'll quit and rejoin because I have to enable you and run as admin again.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
The university really doesn't like Teams.
And the DNR doesn't like Zoom. So
I have to, I usually can't get the app to work at all. I have to run out of a browser.
Sometimes DNR doesn't like Teams either.
That's true.
I can attest to that.
That's right. Doug's the best case to tell us about this since he's operated in both worlds as an insider now.
I have. Yep. They both have their idiosyncrasies.
What's your preference, Doug?
They both have different features. So Zoom is the simplest, that's for sure.
Actually, that happened to me too, Jeffrey. I don't know why. Maybe there was a virus on there. Who knows?
Okay. Will you try to make me presenter?
Oh.
See if it works. Changed all of my admin settings.
Yeah,
There's
you
two of
are
you
you are a
now.
presenter.
No, there's two of her now.
Oh, there's
Hold
two
on.
of her now. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, there's two of me.
Uh-huh. This has happened before too in other meetings, Maddie, with like the advisory committee.
I know. Why do I show
Make a
up twice?
presenter.
Okay, now my screen button is lit up and okay. Oh, what a fiasco. Screen. What do
Oh,
we see?
we can
I
see it. Yeah,
Okay, and you don't
we got
Yay.
it.
The accomplishment of today is just getting Teams to work.
You know, and this is a great example of a great partnership. We all work together to get this to work. So
Oh, okay.
this was actually planned, everybody. This was planned.
This was planned. Okay, and I don't think I can see the chat. Oh, there it is. I'll have that up just in the interim. Great. Well, I'm so sorry, you guys, that I took 4 minutes to figure that out. I've been panicking for 8, so all is good. Okay. So first off, you guys, thank you. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Maddie Hayden. I am the outreach specialist for MASERC. I really have this unique role when it comes to translating the research that's coming out of the center and kind of doing that on a statewide scale throughout Minnesota. And so today, Megan and I are doing kind of a joint presentation. One side is looking at MASERC, the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center, and then the U of M extension. So we're very different, but we work a lot together. So I'm going to cover the U of M side. And oops, now we didn't advance. Now we're good. Okay. I have promised I only have 2 slides about what MASERC is because I think it's a nice way to remember. MASERC was formed in 2012, kind of with this goal of strengthening Minnesota's capacity to solve AIS problems, right? Our mission is very collaborative driven, coordinated, and creating these stable environments that allows research efforts to tackle the issues that are occurring right now. Really simply put, our mission, my brief mission statement is there. You're right. We're going to develop research-based solutions that focus on preventing the spread of AIS. To achieve this, we bring together a bunch of minds. It's not just biologists, ecologists, limnologists, fisheries biologists, but it's policy, human behavior, engineering, economics, genomics, social sciences, robotics. Like we have this really diverse system here at the University of Minnesota that allows all of these teams to conduct this like multifaceted work. So we have these 5 main buckets that our research kind of fits into, these lines: impacts, adapting management to the changing environments of today, prevention, thinking about that as understanding the invasion patterns to mitigate risks. If you guys haven't used AIS Explorer, I know Amy Kinsley was on earlier, a couple weeks ago. That is an example of a data-driven prevention tool that was created at MASERC. Early detection, supporting rapid response, control, suppressing populations, management, right? Trying to provide you with the most informed, effective, and efficient management strategies. So When the rest of my talk is kind of will be focused on this research needs assessment, because although, okay, I just told you what MASERC is, but how do we get to the research? And this research needs assessment is a strategic core of our program. So, right, our mission was to develop these research-based solutions. And in order to do that effectively, we have this process that focuses all, how can we get these resources to move the ball forward on like what is the most threatening species and what coincides with like promising lines of research. So this process is a biennial process in order to get the new lines of research. We do have projects that have continued on for several years. So basically what I'm going to cover is all of these blocks, because we are focusing on like, how do we get from all of these potential species to some type of solution? And so you can imagine the entire process starts off with this world of possibilities, and we need to be able to condense that down in order to prioritize species. And so we do this prioritization by working with a technical committee that kind of, they prioritize the top 40 species that are the biggest threats to Minnesota waters. So the technical committee is actually made up of different managers and researchers in 5 focus organismal groups. So we're always going to be focusing on these groups, which are inverts, plants, microbes, fish, social sciences. And everyone on the technical committee are the experts. They're going to be able to tell us what they're seeing across the state. What is the public stance? What are these biggest threats? So we're asking the people that are kind of in that know. And once we take all of the species potential, we condense that down to 40 species, then we go through this public survey. And this is that first avenue where you guys as resource and AIS managers can get involved. This is a public survey. It is open to anyone and everyone, lake association, managers, researchers. You can submit and fill out this RF or this research needs assessment relating to how our RFP is going to be designed, right? So this survey is open for several months, and with that opportunity for everyone to weigh in, it creates kind of this wide range of responses. I was talking to Corey, and she was saying that the last R&A process, we had about 400 responses. And so you can imagine it is ranking species, but then there's kind of this question at the end that's asking for studies, and it can be an open-ended question that we've received. It can be someone just saying we need to kill all zebra mussels across Minnesota, or it could be like a specific research question. And so, kind of during this research needs, yes, I'm saying it's public, but also we're getting research priorities from key management agencies like the DNR, like the tribal nations. And so we take all this information, oops, I think I'm supposed to be fast forwarding, and we start condensing it down. So stakeholder input is that survey, and then the prioritization occurs with a second committee. So this is our research needs assessment team, which is made up of the experts from the technical committee, and then it expands to additional researchers and managers, focusing again on those same 5 groups: inverts, plants, fish, cross-cutting, I think I missed one. And then you'll see 5 additional members. That's where it's going to be local experts that are complementing the technical team. So these can be the local managers, practitioners, contractors. And what happens is this committee is going to take all of those responses and go through a large iterative process and discussions, and they're going to prioritize, they're going to reprioritize, and they're going to distill all of those ideas into the top 20 focus efforts for the year. Because you can imagine, right, we start at the top again, all the potential. We cannot address every research need that is out there. So we're working to kind of identify, get experts to weigh in how we can have the biggest impact with the funding that we're able to supply. And so then we move into this call out for RFPs. And you might have actually just seen an email about this kind of pop out that we were seeking proposals for research studies. And this is another point that you guys as county as AIS managers can really kind of weigh in on. You know, we do our best. We put this RFP in the hands of managers. But this is an avenue. If you have a project and you know a researcher, you're able to connect with them. A lot of our research is built on partnerships. And if you skim through the RFP right now and you're interested or you have a project that could relate to one, we at MASERC, myself, Corey, Ethan, we're all willing to help you connect to those researchers because there is that catch point. Even though we've distilled it from all the species to 40 down to 20 research questions, it's really up to a PI to submit a proposal. And by having people, interested parties, partnerships, and showing relationships, you have the potential to influence that PI to push a project forward. Once the proposals are collected, the MASERC team does assess these and then eventually awards the grants. And just for your knowledge, this entire process takes about 1.5 years, kind of almost 2 years to get the ball rolling. And at the point, you know, until the projects are awarded, MASERC stays relatively hands off. We're not going to design a project for someone. That is up to building relationships and the PI. But at the point the project are selected, this is where kind of my role and the whole administrative side of MASERC comes in, and we provide a lot of assistance, communications, outreach, quantitative analysis. Corey, I keep mentioning her, she's our associate director at MASERC, refers to this process as like MASERC is this little incubator. So we provide staff, lab spaces, office space, connections, and we work with our researchers because we don't want to be the research institution that creates research, publishes, and then goes away. Our center is focusing on the life and how can we expand that project? How can we make it known, available, and have guidance and things for available to anyone? So really to kind of end, kind of recap and end this, I just highlighted these ways again that you can get involved with MASERC. First, again, it's inputting your ideas, challenges that are being faced into those research needs assessment, into that public survey. But then to complement that, as we're going through the RFP, again, it's open right now. Feel free to reach out to us, engage MASERC, engage a researcher, and start to build those relationships. If you are new and you are new and not on our newsletter, you can sign up at z.umn.edu/MASERC Connect. This will take you to our form. Outreach, I said when I was introducing myself that our mission is to translate this research, providing you with tools and guidance. You know, again, this is my domain. Whether it's guidance, white papers, help with workshop, presentations, asking a researcher to present. I do a lot of public presentations as well. I mean, seriously, you want a coffee break and you want to talk about zebra mussels or native mussels, you can contact me kind of for anything. And then also we have the tools, AIS Explorer. Again, I heard Amy Kinsley was here earlier, not today, but in a previous one. Utilize AIS Explorer. This is a prevention tool that is out there to help you, as well as PI Charter is something relatively new that Alex Badges is getting out and updating with more and more data as PI surveys are being put into the system. So also as managers, like if you work with organizations that are doing PI surveys, I'm gonna brush you to having them submit it under PI Charter. So thank you. I think we'll hold questions until the end. We'll let Megan talk and then we'll kind of come back to that.
Thanks, Maddie. Is my screen showing now?
Yes.
Yes, we can see
It is. Okay. I don't get any indicators that it's actually showing. So, okay. So yeah, so I'm Megan and I am MACERC's extension educator. So MACERC has a really great partnership with extension. We have a 3-person team within extension that's embedded within MACERC, specifically focusing on aquatic invasive species issues. And I'm going to chat about two recent projects, one of which is one that actually followed Maddie's research needs assessment process, where I partnered with a researcher from Department of Forestry who was interested in applying some of the work that she's been doing in like forest managed ecosystems to aquatic invasive species. And then another one that is actually a MACERC developed project that now has a home within extension. And then I'm going to, of course, like put a plug in for the other stuff that we do at the end, just as a kind of a broader scope of what there is. But these were the two kind of newer things that I really wanted to bring to this group. So to start with Beyond the Sign, this is, again, I mentioned that funded project. So Ingrid Schneider from Department of Forest Resources was co-PI on this grant with me, along with, we had some grad students that played some pretty significant roles in it as well. And it was this recognition that we have signage pretty prevalent across the landscape. And lots of people report that signs are the way that they want to receive information. But in practice, they don't actually spend that much time reading them. So some of the thoughts were like, how can we move beyond a sign and get people to engage with invasive species prevention messaging in ways that will actually increase at least their intent to do some of those actions. And we had a few phases to this project, and I'm really interested in like the last phase here is the one that I want to talk about the most and share with you, because it has like the piece that was meant to be developed as something that all of you can use as a result of this project. But to get there, I'm going to talk about these other phases. So, so right now, here we go. We're here. We're going to start here. We started out by observing boating anglers. And we observed anglers at public water accesses in both Anoka and Douglas counties. And we were focused on spaces that did not have watercraft inspectors present, and where there was not any kind of extra signage or effort to give AIS prevention messages. So no cleaning stations, no enhanced signage, just kind of like the basic signage that you might see, maybe a lot like the photo that I had at the beginning, where there's, you know, like the orange sign and maybe like a Stop Aquatic Hitchhiker sign or something like that within a sign bank or something along those lines, but without a lot of extras there. And the goal of this was to be able to tailor our messaging, but we learned some things there. So we found that 21% of the boating anglers leaving those sites had vegetation visible somewhere on their watercraft or trailer, and 26% of them left without removing their drain plug. And we also tried to get some more specific information so that we could make really targeted messages and figure out like, what is the thing that people are missing the most and how can we tailor messages to address those needs? So when there was vegetation present, this is where we saw it. I was surprised that trolling motor was as high as it was. But like trolling motor and the trailer and wheels were kind of our top two, with the kind of the hull of the boat. Lots that was largely like near where hull is meeting a trailer or a bar, you know, it's like something that's holding that on there. And, you know, still kind of significant was like the motor mount and the propellers are lower unit, but maybe less so than kind of those first three. So this is kind of some of that space that we were talking about. We also did some interviews with anglers. And that was another part of what helped guide the messages in the end. So between these observations and those interviews, that's how we developed some new messaging. Okay, so if we are here next, the next thing that we did then was develop messages based on that. So you can see the messages here in a static sign form. So we had one sign with messaging that related to cleaning your equipment, and then one that was focused more towards like draining prevention actions. And the goal was then, and we also had a control message, which is maybe less important because it's not something that you're likely to maybe use out at the launch, but we needed something to test again. So we had a control message that was just like a definition of aquatic invasive species without any kind of prevention action linked to it. Okay, the other thing we did, I had mentioned that we were looking at using something like augmented reality. And so we turned those same messages into augmented reality experiences. So you should be able to scan this QR code and have a thing appear like on the desk or on your floor in front of you. It does take some time to load. I don't know if this is going to work in browser mode, but I'm going to try and play it. And if someone wants to like shout if there's no sound or something, then I won't show the whole thing, but you can at least kind of see what they are. Is there someone talking?
I hear it, but very low.
Okay. Let's see if I adjust my sound, if that does it for you. Oh, I might have just made my computer angry instead. Here we go. Is that any better?
That is better.
Okay. Oh my.
But it is freezing a little bit, yes.
Experiences for everyone, and it is the legal way to leave the launch.
Yeah, it's still freezing.
Okay, I'm just gonna let it kind of, I think you get the picture, right? That it's like, it's a thing, it like a launch appears in front of you, and then you can work your way through and interact with these three-dimensional objects that are now on your like desk or floor or wherever you put it. And it gives you these messages, right? So it's like this more engaging way to receive messages than on that sign. And more to come on this. You can get a chance to like play with these and download these QR codes, whatever you like, and I'll share that with you afterwards. The other piece that went into message development is like, it took a lot of time with a media team to get a whole bunch of different photos and videos that became a part of those messages. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well, that like there's a lot of stuff, like it's a short video, there's like short pieces that end up in that experience, but there's a whole lot more that we took to get there. Okay, the next part was testing. So again, I mentioned that we tested these. So did it make a difference if the message was in augmented reality versus if it was in a sign? And the answer was no, not really. But we have some reasons behind that. So what you can see here are like some specific actions, and the maroon bar shows what people indicated, like how often people indicated that they already take this action. And the yellow shows after the augmented reality intervention, what was their plan for the future? Were they going to continue to do this? And like, I know there's like ups and downs on them. There's not a significant difference in any of these. So just kind of like consider these to be the same. The reason we think this is if you look at those maroon bars, they are already really high. So people have high intentions and report that they do these things at really high levels already. So it can be hard to detect those small changes happening on something that's already happening at a really high level. What else we know is based on those earlier slides that you saw of what we actually observed is that even though people report really high rates of actually doing these behaviors, if we go out and watch what's happening, maybe they're overestimating effort a little bit, or maybe they're not as efficient as they think they are. So they might do that action, but may not be getting all of the things off or done that needs to come off. So we think that like an on the ground test of actual actions is probably going to be a better way to answer this question than looking at like past performance report, like self-reported past performance and self-reported future intentions. Okay, all that being said though, we don't think that like augmented reality is just a worthless tool. So I'm going to move here to the toolkit. And this is the part that I said that I really wanted to share with all of you. So I'm going to have some links show up on the screen. And as I present, I actually can't see you or chat right now. So if maybe Rafa or Doug or someone doesn't mind grabbing the links off the slide and dropping them into chat, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that as part of this project, we had to take a whole bunch of photo and video to create these augmented reality experiences. We didn't want that to be something that just sat on a shelf and was part of a research project and then was like done. There was a lot of, expense that goes into that, and it would be a waste. So there is a gallery that is available now. You can go to this aisprevention.elevator.umn.edu and you can view and download the stuff that we have. We went through, we cleaned it up. We picked kind of like the best cuts, but also have things where maybe it's like a longer stretch of video that you could then take and cut as needed. We have the most of video, but there are also photos. It also has all of the augmented reality files. So you could take the QR codes and just use the QR code yourself if you wish. Or I have not tried this yet, but you can use Adobe Aero. I believe it is currently free because it's still in beta version. And you should be able to like upload this whole file and edit it. Supposedly it's that easy. We had a professional do it, so I'm not sure that I believe that it's that easy and that I could actually make like really good changes to it, but it's there. So you could use the base layers that we already have. If you needed to edit, maybe there's a different action that's more important in your region. You could have a message that changes to that action. There's ways that you could, in theory, edit these if you didn't want to use just like the raw form that we have. But also as you're creating your own messages and doing your own work locally, I hope that you will find and use any of the video or photo assets in here, in those to help, enhance the work that you're doing in a landscape where it's kind of hard to maybe find just like B-roll footage of someone taking plants off of their trailer. So there's a variety of different people who appear in them. They have signed releases that are on file to be a part of this gallery. And everything is on there as like a non-commercial Creative Commons license. So you can just like download it and use it, again, as long as you're not selling it. So that's the link to get to the library. The other piece that's coming that will be linked on there is a best practices guide. And that talks about like how to implement augmented reality into your work, at least for now in the technology landscape that we're in. What's the best place to use it, and maybe where are we not ready for augmented reality yet? If you needed to develop your own messages, what are some best practices that you could use to tweak or use the same messages that we have, or create something completely different? That will all be in there too. We're just finalizing it and kind of, like making it look nice. So that will be linked in there as well. So if you want to get notice when like that full complete set is in there, if you scan this QR code, it will bring you to a form and you can add your name, and I will just send an email out to anyone who has their name in this list to do that. The other thing is, if you really wanted to learn more about like the data behind this and more about the observations and more about the augmented reality and testing, and all the other data that we collected, we did a webinar in November about this, and you can access that on our YouTube channel, which is at z.umn.edu/AIStube. Okay, so that's the Beyond the Sign project. The next one is one of our extension programs, and this is spiny surveillance. Some of you might be familiar with this already. It was originally developed within MACERC with Don Brandstratter and Val Brady and Meg Doerr. And now this has moved and become kind of has its home now within our extension programs for long-term maintenance and communications and disbursement. So spiny surveillance is a response to a need for better early detection monitoring for invasive spiny water flea. So the map here is showing the current known distribution for spiny water flea. So again, like a lot up on like the northern border in the northeastern part of the state, and then Lake Mille Lacs are the places that we know it's been. We also know that oftentimes spiny water flea is in a lake for a really long time before it gets detected. So, some of Don Brandstrader's research has shown, like that sediment cores with like a decade's worth of spiny water flea in the sediment before it was even detected. So there's a need for more surveillance effort. The other challenge is that lots of the other tools that we use for invasive species early detection don't necessarily work for spiny water flea. Like our aquatic plant rakes probably aren't going to find them. Our zebra mussel samplers, you're probably not going to find them. Maybe if you're doing Belliger toes, then you might. But for the most part, the tools that we're using for the detection of lots of the other common invasive species we have early monitoring programs for are not set up for early detection of spiny water flea. So that was part of the early work when Don and Meg and Val created this, was to use that research on spiny water flea, the best methods you could possibly use for early detection to give you the best chance, the best time of year, the best time of day, the best parts of the lake, taking all the things that they know to put together this comprehensive way to search for for spiny water fleas. You can download this guide and kind of see more about this project at the link on the screen. So that's z.umn.edu/spiny-surveil. And so like I said, you can download this. There's a whole bunch more there. This is a program that we hope to share and seen as useful by both volunteers within our extension volunteer network and local managers who are hoping to do some additional spiny water flea surveillance. So one of the things that we have added as of last year, I believe, is this map that is a real-time map of where surveillance is happening. And this is really an effort to prevent duplicated effort. So if you were interested in going out and doing some monitoring, but you don't know like who else is doing monitoring in this area, like are there like community members in my county who are doing monitoring, so I don't need to worry about that lake. You can see that happen live, and it's color coded. So last year's monitoring is a different color than this year's monitoring. So you can see that here. This is an older screenshot, but and you can kind of see where we've had reports come in so far. The other nice thing about this is it's a place to collect negative data, which is something that we don't have a lot of, but it really is helpful for spiny water flea in particular. If there is a new detection, it can help these researchers answer some extra questions. So it's a place where we can have that negative data available. You can see where it's happened. Everything in here so far is a negative report. Also, if things get submitted and there's a positive, we do instruct folks to submit that via EdMaps. We haven't had a positive, so we haven't had to do this, but we would connect with DNR as well and let them know that something came into this form and make sure that that follow-up in EdMaps was happening as well. The other thing about this is it's one of the programs that we have, like most of our extension programs can be done by anyone, whether you have a boat or not. There's kind of a space. Lots of this stuff happens is shore-based. Spiny surveillance is different in that sense, in that you do need a boat to do it. It does not necessarily have to be a motorized boat. It's helpful if it is. I do know someone who has done it in a canoe successfully. A kayak, probably not big enough or stable enough. So like a canoe is probably like the basic minimum level of boat needed. There's also some equipment that's required to do it. So like you need a plankton net, you're going to want squirt bottles and sorting trays. You're doing this later in the day, so flashlights and headlamps are helpful. They're tiny things. You want a magnifying glass. So you have like this kind of kit that you need. The biggest piece of expense is the plankton net. You can get away with cheaper nets, but it can make the work more difficult, particularly if you're on more productive lakes. So having the specialized equipment that's targeted towards spiny water flea is really helpful. However, this costs like about $430 to put like the full kit together. So one of the things that I'm working on, I really, really hope that it is available for this year, is to have some loaner kits available too. And we're kind of trying to strategically place those around the state that would be available for loan free of cost from up to 10 extension offices around the state. So another way where whether your program has a net or not, like could easily be checked out for use and volunteers could use it. So like hopefully another resource that's available to just add in some of the monitoring efforts across the state. Okay, that's all that I had for spiny water flea. I have 2 quick slides where I'm just putting some other plugs in. So I talked about 2 things. One that was more of like a research project following that research needs assessment process that Maddie talked about, and one that's more of like our regular extension programming within MACERC. We do have way more than that. I've talked about a couple of these things in previous years at these meetings, but I just want to give you like a picture of what a year of extension programs within MACERC looks like. And there's pretty much always something available to participate in. And I am happy to connect about any of these and chat more if there's opportunities to partner. I always love that. So, you know, I'm happy to share more about any of the following topics as well. If you want to get updates about those things, this is where you would do that. So it's z.umn.edu/AIS detectors updates, and it will just sign you up. You can choose which programs you want to get updates about, and it'll kind of selectively give you whichever messages you're kind of saying you're interested in. If you want to hear about all of them, then you just check all of the boxes. So that's the kind of the last piece I had. The final piece was just recognizing the funders and partners for the programs that I was talking about today. There's a bunch of them. So there's the final slide of thanks. I also realized I didn't put my email on a slide. So I'm about to stop share. So I will put that in the chat here. And then I think Maddie and I are available for questions. Okay, did I successfully stop sharing?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. It turns out I can't tell if I'm sharing, but I also can't tell if I'm not sharing. So
Okay, any questions? I think, Andrew, if you just want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi Megan and Maddie. I guess my question, so we've had over the years, we've had kind of a few projects that we thought would be, I don't know, that would offer kind of a great study opportunity for MACERC researchers. We never, and I'm from Carver County, by the way, we never put in for any of the MACERC grants, but kind of the challenge that we would have is just finding a PI. So I guess the question is, and I think you probably already answered it, is for managers to kind of talk to folks about what their potential study is. Do we simply just kind of get in touch with you and Nick or Corey or someone and just kind of talk over it and see if there are anyone that you are or that MACERC is aware of, either at the U or at a different university, that could potentially have interest in being the PI for a study that, I guess, again, we think would be great, you know, questions that would be great to answer. And does the PI have to be a University of Minnesota researcher, I guess, is the second question.
Yeah, so the first one, get in touch with us, whether it's myself, Corey, Ethan. Nick is busy, but I always want to say plug
Right.
him, but sometimes he'll just forward it to one of us. So a lot of it, when we're distilling down into that process, if there's something on the RFP that matches really closely with what you want to study, for sure reach out to us. We can put you in touch. We have a very large network of people in Minnesota, federal partners, state partners, kind of that whole gamut. And so that would be a really good plug. And then when it is time for that research needs assessment, make sure to just fill out that survey, rank your species as they are in your county, and provide us with some input, because that's when all of that distilling process, that's kind of one opportunity to get involved and have maybe that specific project. Because, you know, we're a research institution. It's hard to, this process helps us distill and make things, it's a little harder for us. There's a lot of like back end work, but it's our way that we can try to get research to you. And so contact us for anything. If I don't know the answer, I bug a lot of people. So,
Okay.
and then yes, when it comes to PIs, we do have different partnership aspects that work with other agencies. So, and sometimes the PIs will get lumped. I'm not the exact person to answer this, and maybe Megan even knows it better. So we have these partnership projects. We have people that are outside of the U of M, whether it was USGS that's leading a PI. My only example running through my head is Diane Waller with USGS right now. So, but we do have the potential for outside PIs or collaboration through having a researcher at the U of M that is working with people outside of it.
Okay.
So the potential is kind of endless.
Got it. Cool. And I apologize. I stepped out for 5 minutes during your talk, and I must have missed the survey part. So I'll probably reach out to you within the next week or so, just to kind of chat about some ideas we've been throwing around here at the county.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Drew, I'll add in, I'm going to drop a link in, but so outside of kind of like the MACERC extension partnership, there's a group that serves broadly around sustainability issues, and it's RSDP, Regional Sustainable Development Projects. It is a group that I've been less familiar with in extension, but have gotten to know more about them. And it could be a place to look at, especially for like if there's community groups that have like a specific need or project, but they need help either figuring out how to implement it or to do like some of the research behind making it work. So like maybe it's not big enough to be a research project, but it's, you know, there's still something there in a project, and like some connections to university resources would help make that happen. This group with an extension can help make some of those connections too. So it has to be like community led, right? So this cannot be a like university researcher driven project. That's the whole goal behind this group. And there's contact there. They operate in regions across the state. So you can always connect with like the person for that region, or again, like if there's folks within your county who have projects that they are interested in, and it kind of matches with the current priorities, that could be a way to do that. I learned about it recently with a question someone had about that related to wake boats. It was like, oh, that's outside of my area. I don't really know what to do, and we're trying to figure out like how to connect and address this problem. And that's how we connected with RSDP. Is like this is like a grassroots community effort, and they are looking for connections, right, to university resources. So like that's one of the things this group can do. So another potential resource that might be helpful too.
Great. Thanks for that. Maybe bugging you too, Megan.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. I don't want to keep people from lunch, but we probably have time for one more question if somebody really has something that they want to ask our presenters. Okay. Well, with that, Megan, Maddie, thank you for your time. I'm a research, I'm originally from MACERC, and I loved all of the work that you all do. I'm familiar with some of the programs, so I've always enjoyed everything that you all do. Great partners to be with. So yeah, thank you for being here. And
thank you.
Thank you. And just before we go, I just want to remind everybody that on February 25th, we're going to have our last workshop. It's going to be the public engagement, and that's going to be on Tuesday, February 25th from 1 to 4. I put the wrong date earlier on, so I said March, but it's next week, February 25th. Do you have anything to add, Doug? You're muted.
Yes, I was busy copying and pasting into the chat. Also, our next workshops for in person, I put those in the chat. March 11th again, and then also March 31st with our backup dates.
Yeah.
So everybody has it. So thanks, Rafa.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, again, I want to thank all of our presenters and thank you all for being here. This is one of the things that we love doing about our position. It's probably the most fun that we have over the years, and this wouldn't be able to happen if it wasn't for you all attending, and also for our presenters for giving their time and volunteering. If we didn't have them, this wouldn't be happening. So again, thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you hopefully on Tuesday next week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rafa.